Welcome to the Open Forum in the Villages, Florida. In this show, we talk to leaders of clubs and interesting folks who live here in the Villages to get perspectives of what is happening here in the Villages, Florida. We are a listener-supported podcast. There will be shout-outs for supporters in episodes.
This is Mike Roth. And listeners, I'm thrilled to share with you this podcast, which is my passion project for you. This podcast brings you knowledge, inspiration, and a lot of things that people need to know about the villages and the people living here. Be sure to hit the follow button to get the newest episode each week. Creating this podcast is a labor of love, even though it demands more time than I can easily spare. Now, here's where you come in. You can help us keep the podcast alive and thriving. How? By becoming a supporter. The easy way for you to support us is to visit our podcast webpage, openforuminthevillagesflorida.com, and click on the supporter button at the top of the page, or the purple supporter box. Even a small donation of $3 to $10 a month makes a big difference, and you can cancel your subscription at any time. Your support means the world to us. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep those headphones on. I hope everyone enjoys today's show. This is Mike Roth on Open Forum in the Villages, Florida. I'm here today with Tim Herndon and Keith Brandell from Tim Herndon Plumbing. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So, Tim, how long have you had your company?
We've been in business 13 years. It's been a great thing. I really enjoy being in business in the villages. We cover quite a bit of Central Florida, but the folks that live in the villages are just great people to work with.
Before you came to the villages, what did you do?
I have worked in the villages since I was 17. I started with another company. It was a great company to work for. So I've been in the villages for a long time. I remember my first job in the villages. I remember going down 42 and it was a 2-lane road. A lot has happened since then.
Oh, yeah. Villages has grown very big. In many respects, it should be a city. It's so large.
Yes, sir.
Based on population, I think we'd be the 7th or 10th largest city in Florida if we were a city. And Keith, what do you do for the company?
So right now I'm working in the fleet maintenance department, taking care of all the trucks and making sure that they're out on the road every day so that we can meet the customer's needs and make sure that we're taking great care of them throughout the day.
Do you put in the plumbing in the new homes?
We just do service work. We work on all of the district buildings like rec centers, pools, stuff like that.
Pools. That's interesting. Didn't think that you'd be in the same categories.
If water runs through it, we can take care of it.
What do you think is the most significant job to take care of the water systems in their homes?
If you see a leak, it will only get worse. If you have a faucet on the outside of the house that's leaking, you don't have to panic when you see a drip, but you should think about calling somebody to fix it now so you're not having a faucet run wide open in the middle of the night, something you would have to deal with in the middle of the night. If you see a leak, focus on it now, not later. I would also say water heaters are a thing that people get stressed out about. What do I do? Now, I would say drain it once a year. When you drain it once a year, you're getting the calcium out of the heater. This has to do with an electric heater or a natural gas tank type heater.
So, Tim, when you say drain it, do you mean take 100% of the 40 gallons of water out of the heater?
Negative. You don't have to drain the whole thing. What you're focused on is getting the sediment out of the bottom of it. When you get the sediment out of the bottom, you don't have to waste the 40 gallons of water inside. You're only removing the 1 inch of sediment at the bottom.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. So what about the people who have tankless water heaters down in the sections south of 44?
Absolutely. A tankless water heater, the manufacturer states that you should decalcify it every year. Decalcifying removes calcium from the copper wall of the heat exchanger. Calcium actually builds up on the copper and it makes it so it has a hard time for the heat of the fire inside of the tankless heater to get to the water. So it makes it so you're using more energy to heat the water. And really, people get a tankless water heater to save energy. When you're wasting that energy, it makes it so a tankless water heater is not worth having. So what I'm trying to say is, if you once a year decalcify the heater, you can get kits yourself to decalcify the heater. It's about $200, maybe just a little over $200 for the kit. You can order online or you can order it from us.
What do you get in the kit?
You get a pump, a bucket, and the cleaner to run through it. You will actually see the calcium in the bucket when you get through running the chemical through the heater.
So if a homeowner hasn't done that for 4 or 5 years, is that heater still salvageable or repairable?
Yes, it is. So sometimes you have to do it twice in one setting.
In one sitting?
Correct, to get that calcium out of the heat exchanger. Our issue is when somebody's called us and they haven't decalcified the heater in 10 years, it is very hard to get the calcium out of the heater. And not only does the calcium cover the heat exchanger, but it covers the sensors that are trying to tell the temperature of the water coming in and the water coming out of the heater. So your sensors are starting to mess up, and then it costs quite a bit of money to change those sensors and still decalcify.
So you're killing the life of the unit too.
Correct.
One of the questions I had about homes with the instant hot water heater mounted on the outside of the home, is there any way to get instant hot water at the faucets in the bathrooms?
Okay, so they make tankless heaters that have recirculation pumps mounted inside them, or they have special tankless heaters that you can put recirc pumps on. Whenever I say recirc pump, recirculation pump. When you have a recirculation pump, it keeps hot water in your house all of the time, meaning close to the fixture that you're using the water at.
I hear it with a hot water tank. I had a pump put in when the house was new, and I had 2 valves put in, one in the furthest bathroom and on the end of the house. So we wound up with instant hot water during the periods of day that we're most likely to use hot water.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it had a nice 24-hour clock with a lot of periods that you could, 15-minute periods, you could turn it on, turn it off. And knock wood, I'm not going to hit any wood, but for the past 7 years, it's been absolutely perfect. You can do the same kind of thing with the instant hot waters?
So most people don't have the tankless that can take a recirc pump. In my opinion, this is a downfall of a tankless. I try to talk people into using a tank water heater. So many people ask me, what does it take to put a tankless water heater in my house?
Did you mean for someone who had a new home built with a tankless instant hot water heater on the outside, you're saying they should it's better to put in a tank system?
No. So many people ask me when they have a tank system in their house, they ask me, can they put a tankless in their house instead of a tank style heater?
Okay, that would seem to be like a downgrade.
A tankless style heater has its own positives and its own negatives. So
Correct.
Let's go with the negatives of a tankless heater. That most tankless heaters, you cannot install a recirc pump on. Also, another negative for a tankless heater, when you have to order parts, when it's broken, nobody keeps the parts in stock.
Supply warehouses don't keep them in stock?
Us as a company, we repair the tankless heaters, so we keep a lot in stock. But each manufacturer has different parts for different units. So it's hard to keep all of these parts in stock. Now, let's go for the negatives of a tank style heater. So we're going to go negatives first. The negative of a tank style heater is you have a standing pilot inside of a gas water heater. So this standing pilot is using a little bit of gas all of the time.
Don't they have instant automatic pilots that go on when they need?
Not for a residential heater, so it has a standing pilot. So you're using a little bit of gas all of the time. Now, I would say The only other negative for a tank style heater is having space for it in your garage. If you don't have space, then obviously it won't work.
Yeah, you have to have the space designed for it.
Correct.
We have a closet. That you mentioned those. I had a gas heater for 25 years in Cincinnati, and one of the interesting problems was that the pilot light would get blown out in certain windy storms. There were some times I couldn't rely on myself, and I had to have a contractor come in and fix it.
Yes, sir. We were actually dealing with that on a homeowner's house. The way that her roof was built, every once in a while, wind would blow it out. And I don't know, we've had to deal with that.
I found that it also had a sensor, a bimetallic sensor tube that went up there. And when that bimetallic tube blew out,
Yeah, the thermocouple.
that was the word, thermocouple. When they went out, we had to have a contractor come in, put a new one of those guys in.
That brings me to the good parts of a tank style water heater. Pretty much every plumber keeps the parts to repair a tank style water heater.
What parts would they be?
A thermocouple?
So what, if it's an electric heater, is there also a thermocouple in those?
No, sir. So let's go over the gas ones first.
Okay, gas first.
Thermocouple that I mentioned, a gas control, and a burner assembly. We're either going to have a supply house have those in stock, or we're going to keep them in stock. So I feel like that's such a great thing about a tank style water heater is everybody keeps parts for them.
So the downtime would be minimal.
Now, in an electric water heater, tank style, you're only focused on two things to change, and that is upper and lower elements and upper and lower thermostats, which you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and get any of those for most any electric water heater that is a tank style. That's just another great thing about them.
So in an electric, to change a heating element, you actually have to take all the water out.
We don't. It takes us 15 minutes to change an element.
How do you know if an element is going bad?
You measure resistance through the element.
That's how you do it. As a homeowner, how do I know I have a bad element?
Great question. So there's two things. The first thing is if you don't have this amount of hot water that you used to have. Okay, so that would tell me if somebody calls me on the phone and says, I don't have the same amount of hot water that I used to have, the first thing that pops in my mind is the bottom element is bad. That means you only have half a tank of hot water. If somebody calls me on the phone that says, I don't have any hot water, then that could be the top element is bad. So because...
So if the top element is bad and the bottom element is good, that would mean that there's absolutely no hot water?
Correct. Yes, sir. Because the top element wants to have the top of the water heater full of hot water before it will send power to the bottom element, the bottom thermostat and the bottom element. So it has to heat the top first before it will heat the bottom. That's the standard for electric water heaters.
And the distribution of the hot water out of the hot water heater is from the top.
The distribution from a water heater is out of the top because hot water rises.
Okay. And there are a couple of other elements on the electric hot water heater that I don't understand, and maybe some of our listeners don't understand. It's that tank that's on the top of them.
You have an expansion tank on a water heater, and so many people say, why do I need that expansion tank? And here's why. When water heats, it expands. Anything that heats, it expands. So you have to have a spot for that expansion. And the reason why people didn't need them, say 20 years ago, is because they started putting check valves on the water meters where the water comes in the house. So what they found is, say your neighbor is using some kind of a pesticide with their hose bib, and somehow that pesticide got in their water, their potable water inside their house. You don't want that pesticide to go back into the water main and go into your house. You want it to stay. You don't want it to back up.
You want it to stop right there at the bib.
That's correct. So they put check valves at the water meters for safety, so it doesn't get into the water main and go to several houses and hurt people.
Those check valves were put in and then the expansion tanks were required because of the water heating.
When the water heats, it expands, and that expansion tank has a balloon inside of it, so the water can force into the balloon, expand into the balloon, and then when you turn a faucet on inside the house, that balloon retracts, and it makes it reset for the next.
In your opinion, how long do these expansion tanks last?
Usually between 4 and 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And is there a symptom that homeowners should be aware of that would tell them that their hot water expansion tank has expired?
There can be water that leaks out of the TMP valve, which is a temperature and pressure valve on the side or top of the heater, and there will be a 3/4 inch pipe that goes down to the water heater pan.
So if there's water in the water heater pan, that means that the expansion tank is probably gonzo.
That's correct. Another way that you can know that the expansion tank is bad is if the white round shutoffs that are underneath every fixture in the village houses, most every village house has a white A-core stop.
And that was a plumbing word, A-core. We don't know what that is as you regular folks. And what is an A-core?
A-core is the manufacturer of the shutoff that has the white round knob underneath the sink.
Oh, yeah, it's the push-pull thing that's on with a sharp.
What'll happen is if the expansion tank is bad on the water heater, the pressure inside the house will get greater and it will make your shutoffs shut off. It will pop automatically.
Oh, really?
So that's a symptom of your expansion tank going bad.
Okay. And the other issue that comes up with the electrics, water heaters, is the anode rod.
Correct. Usually, if you change an anode rod every 10 years, you're going to get more life out of that water heater.
Really? And not
Now,
change it every 3 to 5 years?
I don't think that you need it because every time I pull an anode rod out in that amount of time, you still have a lot of life left on the anode. So the anode is a sacrificial metal.
Mm-hmm.
When there is no anode left, then the water is actually eating the tank of the water heater.
How long should a electric hot water heater average life be?
In the villages, they've been lasting 22 years.
That's a long time.
That's it.
So at 10 years, about halfway, you suggest people have the anode rod pulled. Is that a job that most consumers can do themselves or need a professional?
You can. It takes an 1/16" socket.
Big socket.
You're going to spend, say, $30 for a socket. So if you have to buy an 1/16" socket, for us to come out and pull the anode rod and put a new anode rod in, you're looking at about $115.
Mm.
It's going to take not a lot of time.
Then you're going to buy an anode rod for another $30.
Correct.
Yeah, and then you're going to do something you're probably not very familiar with doing.
And you can call us if you have any question about it. Call us on the phone.
Do the gas hot water heaters have something like an anode rod as well?
We don't change the anode in the gas heater. We haven't had the issue like an electric. What I think is when you're running electricity through an electric heater, the electrolysis that occurs is what makes it so we have to change it in an electric heater. Yeah, I haven't had an issue. I've pulled them in gas heaters and I haven't had the issue.
I've pulled them in my gas in Cincinnati. That's Cincinnati water, not Village's water. And after 8 or 10 years, that anode rod was nothing but wire.
Okay, then well, absolutely needed to be changed.
But that was Cincinnati, not here. Now, there's been a lot of talk in the movies about water heaters blowing up. Can a water heater blow up here in the Villages?
I have never seen a water heater explode.
You have to watch Mythbusters because they made 2 of them explode.
Okay, so people get stressed out about worrying about their water heater exploding. If you start to see water in the water heater pan, or if it does not have a pan, if it's in a garage and water right next to the water heater, it's time to call a plumber. It's not going to explode. It's just going to start to seep water out, and then you know it needs to be changed or repaired.
Good. Let's take a quick pause here and listen to an Alzheimer's tip from Dr. Craig Curtis. Dr. Curtis, can you tell our listeners just one thing they can do to improve their brain health?
That's a great question. I think that if there was one tip I could give people to improve their brain health, it would be switching their diet and trying to follow more of a Mediterranean type diet.
And what's in a Mediterranean diet?
It's tough to hear, but a Mediterranean diet has low amounts of red meat and butter and sweets, carbohydrates, sugars, and high amounts of fresh fruits and vegetables, leafy greens, legumes, fish, white meat such as chicken, and moderate amounts of exercise.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Curtis.
Absolutely. My favorite tip involves a change in eating patterns, but it's not a drastic change. It's simply increasing the amount of fresh fruits and vegetables, fish, other white meats, and lowering the amounts of red meat, sweets, sugars, and also carbohydrates. It's essentially following a Mediterranean type diet plan.
Thank you, Dr. Curtis. Dr. Curtis, to get more information about what you're doing for Alzheimer's, is there a website that they can go to?
Yes, sir. My website, www.craigcurtis.com, is the best place to go, and it's a great resource for patients and a great way to get in touch with my office.
Is there a telephone number they can call?
Yes, sir. 352-500-5252.
And there's a way for them to leave a message 24 hours a day?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Could you tell our listeners what makes Tim Herndon Plumbing different from other plumbing companies?
What makes us different is we're not there at your house to sell you something that you don't need. We're going to be as honest as we possibly can be and tell you what you absolutely need. We understand the people in the villages are on a fixed income, and if we go to your house for a faucet dripping, we're going to try to repair the faucet. If we can repair it, it's going to save you quite a bit of money rather than replace it. In the villages, most faucets are Delta faucets, and Delta makes a good faucet, and it can be repaired, and we can always find parts to repair it. So I feel like the thing that sets us apart is we're just trying to be as honest as we can be.
There's been some talk here in the villages about replacing the push-pull valves under the sinks with ball valves because that's a better valve. Do you think that's a necessary project, or do you think it's just unnecessary?
When the round knob stops break, and those are the A-core stops, when they break, I suggest a brass craft stop, okay? And that is a several turn stop. And the reason why I suggest that, these brass craft stops have been in houses for 80 years. And if I go into an 80-year-old house and it has a brass craft stop, more than likely it's going to shut off. I would suggest a brass craft stop that is a several turn stop, because if it starts to leak out of the packing of the handle, we can just tighten the packing. When you have a ball valve style, it is just like an A-core stop because an O-ring seals it. So if it leaks out of the stem, you cannot tighten it. The stop itself has to be changed. I'm focused on longevity, and so to me, a brass craft stop is the best.
It made sense to me in houses that had copper pipe. Here in the villages, we have plastic pipe. How do you put a brass valve on a plastic pipe?
So they make a plastic insert that goes in the brass that you can glue it onto the pipe. But I want to be clear about the A-core stops, the round style knobs. I'm okay with them. If they're not leaking and they're not a big issue, now if they're leaking or they're shutting off by themselves, they need to be changed. And then I would suggest a brass craft stop. So I just want to be totally upfront. I'm okay with the A-core stops.
Good. I was always worried about them because I never lived in a home that had an A-core stop in it before I moved to the villages. And occasionally when I had to turn off the hot water or the cold water under the sink, just pulling it and pushing it on and off made me feel very uncomfortable.
I can understand because most people are used to a several turn stop to shut it off. And when you turn the white knob, it don't matter how many times you turn it, it's not going to shut off.
It doesn't work that way.
Correct.
Push pull. Tim, what are the other common problems that you guys get called out for?
A disposal leaking We change a lot of disposals during the day. Our men keep them on their trucks. We probably change 3 a day. We just keep an eye on it. If your disposal starts to make noise, it could have something in it, or the bearing could be going bad. If it starts dripping out of the center, then there's a seal on the shaft that is going bad. If it's the bearing or the seal, then we have to change the disposal. The disposals that are in, if it's a Badger 5.
Yeah, is that a brand name?
Yeah, Badger 5, that's a good disposal. That's what I would suggest to people for the price. It's a 1/2 horsepower. Now you can get a 3/4 horsepower, or you can get a 1 horsepower. The bottom line is, all a disposal is a electric cheese grater. Everything you put in that disposal, it just spins it to the outside wall of the disposal, and it grades it just like cheese, and that's how it goes down the drain. So I would say we're getting 5 to 10 years of life out of these disposals. So if you start to see any water seeping out of the disposal, it's time to change it.
What can we do, Tim, today to help our young people?
We have a lot of young people that work for us. And so many older folks say, I don't think we can help the kids today. They're so focused on playing video games and so forth and so on. I will tell you that there are so many young people that are willing to put effort into succeeding. And I think I have 6 young men and young women that work for us that are doing what it takes to learn a trade in order to succeed in life. And I just want to make that clear to the people of the villages, the people of America, that there are so many young boys and girls out there that are willing to put the effort in to succeeding. And we actually have an engineering camp at my shop every summer. And at that engineering camp, we teach young boys and girls aged 13 to 18. They build wood toolboxes, dustpans out of sheet metal. We weld sheet metal and we bend sheet metal. They come to my shop for a week and we do projects with them. They sweep floors, they make the lunches. And in that process, it shows them that they can do things with their hands that they had no clue they could do. And
where do you get the kids for those summer camps?
We put it on Facebook that we're having the camp, and people sign up. The parents, they sign their kids up for the camp. We also have, Keith, we had automotive repair.
We did things like teaching them how to change tires and how to check their batteries and all the automotive things that these kids don't normally get to see, so that they can make sure that they're safe on the roads, safe around the people that they're driving around, and they're cognizant of what's going on with their own vehicle.
And where is your shop located, Tim? In Inverness.
Yes, sir. We keep 3 or 4 trucks in the villages every day.
Good. You said you handle anything that water flows through. Does that mean you handle water softeners?
Yes.
What do you think of those?
If you want a water softener, I will install it for you. If you want a water filter without it being softened, meaning if you want a carbon filter to take the chlorine out of the water, then I'll put that. So when people call us, I ask them what they're looking for from a water filter. I'm not just going to install something on their house. I want to go test the water. I want to understand what they're looking for, and that's what we're going to give them a price to install. Water softeners do a great job by putting less calcium in your water heater. They make it so when your dishwasher is working, you don't have cloudy dishes when it's finished. So water softeners do a good job. And if that's something you're looking for, we can help you with that.
And just to add to that, I think earlier we spoke about something that differentiates Tim Herndon Plumbing from others, is that we really ask in-depth questions about your issue. We don't just go on its face value. Tim is super about all those things. He likes to do a deep dive to find the root cause of the problem, not just the symptom to fix it.
Okay. We didn't talk about reverse osmosis systems. Do you guys do those too?
Yes, we do. Reverse osmosis, to me, is the best filter system out there. It just takes so much out of the water and leaves you with just pure water.
Do you repair those?
Yes, we put the membrane inside of them. Usually a membrane lasts a year. And whenever I say a year, I'm talking about the reverse osmosis that goes underneath the kitchen sink.
Right.
And we hook them up to the ice machine at your refrigerator. So you have reverse osmosis water coming out of the fridge.
So, Tim, if someone wants to get a hold of you after the show, how do they do that?
You can call our office at 352-201-8237 and talk to any of the girls in the office. They can help you. And if you have any questions for me, I'm at the office and I can help you.
You said you had a website.
You can go on our Facebook page, Tim Herndon.
Thanks a lot, guys, for being with us today.
Remember, our next episode will be released next Friday at 9 a.m. Should you want to become a major supporter of the show or have questions, please contact us at mike@rothvoice.com. This is a shout-out for supporters Tweet Coleman, Ed Williams, Dwayne Romich, Paul Sorgen, Kathy Loving, and Dr. Craig Curtis at K2 in the Villages. We will be hearing more from Dr. Curtis with short Alzheimer's tips each week. If you know someone who should be on the show, contact us at mike@rothvoice.com. The way our show grows is with your help. Text your friends about this show if you enjoyed listening, or just tell your friends about the show. We thank everyone for listening to the show. The content of the show is copyrighted by Roth Voice 2025. All rights reserved.